So what is our questions tonight? You haven't got this paper, not distributed. It's number 8, isn't it? Mr. Chu, tonight. Number 8, isn't it? Yeah. Your questions are very, very long ones. Very hard to find the answer. Some more coming. Yes, tonight the question goes like this. When a person has accumulated a great amount of good karma, he will be reborn in a more conducive environment. Does this mean that he will also have more opportunities to know more Dhamma and further accumulations of good karmas in his subsequent rebirth, thus leading him to final enlightenment? Now this is the part of his question. And later, some branches are there, if or if not, and why. So now you heard the question. So what is the questions? Did you hear? You did not hear. What is the essence of this question? Mr. Chu, what is the essence of this question just now I read? You can summarize.
So I'm asking whether if a person has accumulated good, when a person has accumulated good karma in this life, will he be reborn in a conducive atmosphere or conducive condition whereby he will be able to accumulate more karma by getting in touch with the teachings of the Buddha?
Right. Today I received a letter from America, California, who has listened to one of our cassette tape. He says that in that cassette he heard that simply by accumulating karmas, no one can attain nirvana or final goal. Then he asked why. So still I could not reply. Your question is close to that. When a person has accumulated a great amount of good karma, he will be reborn in a more conducive environment. I think you have heard that I have explained all our good karma. Now we are talking about good karmas, not the bad karmas. All our good karmas divide into two categories, two groups. Can you remember them? Cannot. No one can remember. Then you can understand why it is difficult for us to find out final salvation or nirvana simply by accumulating good karmas. So how are we going to divide into two groups? Cannot. Not. So today you try to remember this forever. Lokiya and Lokuttara. These are the Pali and Sanskrit words. Lokiya means worldly. Lokuttara means supramundane. Mundane and supramundane. So divide into two groups. Right? Then what are the good karmas that we accumulate as worldly karmas? Why do we call them worldly karmas? I have told you, we cannot accumulate even good karmas without depending on our craving. If there is no craving in our mind, we never accumulate good karmas. Can you understand it? Cannot. Now that's right. It's very good. You say cannot understand. Why do you want to accumulate good karmas? For what purpose? Can you tell me? Why do you need good karmas? Also cannot. There must be an aim, an object, a purpose. Simply, we are not going to accumulate any good karmas. What is our aim? No aim? Pardon? Yes, merit means karma. That is the English word. Still, your knowledge or your understanding is not, what do you call it? I should not say very shallow, it's very bad for me to say. And not advanced. I use that word, not advanced. Yeah. Advancing very, very slowly. We need good karmas to enjoy our life. That is the simple answer. Through the influence of good karma, we want to be born in a good family, wealthy family, to enjoy our life, to be rich, to experience pleasure, worldly pleasure, to lead a healthy life, long life. But when we aim for one of these things, we never think that craving is behind. If there is no craving, we never create such ideas, aims in our mind. Because these things are changeable. Now many people want to go to heaven. That is the main purpose of following a religion, doing meritorious deeds. What is the aim? To enjoy their life. Craving is behind. If craving is behind, whatever we gain through the influence of our action or merits, the effect or the result that we experience, that we gain, is changeable. Can you understand this? It is changeable. It is not permanent. If we think it is permanent, it is a dream, our own imagination. Now you can understand why it is difficult for us to gain nibbanic bliss or final salvation through worldly karma. No one can gain. But these things are important for us to use as our pocket expenses. After spending, and without our knowledge, we become empty pocket. Nothing in our pockets. Spend everything. Then, what would be the fate of that life? Now that is the danger. That is the uncertainty of worldly karma. By doing a lot of good deeds, we aim to gain something pleasurable, enjoyable thing. After gaining and experiencing, spending, we become bankrupt. Again we have to accumulate. again and again and again, life after life, we have to accumulate. At the very moment when we neglect the accumulations of good karma, we get into trouble. Not enough pocket expense. This is the nature of the karma that we accumulate by using our craving. Very uncertain. Now let us come to the other aspects. Lokiya and Lokuttara, supramundane. What do you mean by supramundane? Above these worldly conditions, free from worldly conditions. Today, our life, our mind, our way of life, the world where we live, everything is subject to worldly condition. That means changeable. There are known and unknown forces. These forces are unbiased. No favoritism. Changes can take place. This is the nature of worldly life. That is why it is necessary for us to develop our way of life, to bring up this uncertain life up to that supramundane level. That means a spiritual development. There is no craving in that spiritual development. So we have not polluted the aim of our meritorious deeds when we develop this spiritual way of life. Craving, hatred, ignorance. There are three main forces, roots. If one of them is involved in our activities, in our merits, in our good deeds, pollution, impurity, uncertainty can be seen there. Either craving or selfishness, hatred or anger or jealousy, if not ignorance or illusion, pollute the purity of the action. So when we develop the spiritual way of life, you cannot find this pollution there, but purity. Let us take few. They are also merits. But many people never consider seriously that these merits are more important than the worldly merits because of their craving. Now when you develop your kindness by removing your cruelty and hatred, that kindness or compassion is a meritorious deed. Because you purify the mind by removing certain dirts which pollute the mind. There is no craving behind. This is one of the supramundane meritorious deeds. Then you develop equanimity or unbiased attitude. That means without showing any discrimination, without bringing forward certain issues such as racial issues, color bar, religious issue, cultural, traditional. So all our differences, discriminations, hostility, we show because of this, by depending on one of these things, our race, our culture, our tradition, and our country, our religion. A man who develops his mind cannot maintain such attitude. one day we had to develop our mind up to that level. Otherwise we never gain our salvation. I think you can remember what Dalai Lama has said. It's a very beautiful saying. He says, when I meet another person, I never think of his religion, race, color, or sex. I never think. But I feel I met another member of my human family. That means no differences, no discrimination. So we had to develop our mind up to that extent. All our problems and jealousy and grudge and enmity and differences take place because of this mentality. So if we can maintain that, that is a merit. It is a meritorious deed. It is supramundane, higher than ordinary worldly way of life. That is called mental development and mental culture. Then, let us take another one. If we can practice patience or tolerance in our mind without showing or without adapting or maintaining anger or hostility or jealousy or grudge or enmity in our mind, although others come and discriminate us, criticize or condemn us, in spite of all these disturbances, if we can maintain some sort of patience and understanding without allowing our mind to be perturbed or disturbed, that is the highest achievement. Now when you study the life stories of the saints, Arahantas and the Buddhas, there are thousands of incidents that we can show where they have adopted this attitude. Because they cannot show any discrimination. Because such ingredients are no more in their mind. Minds are completely pure. They cannot harbor anger. Impossible. They cannot show any discrimination. There is no favoritism in their way of life. All are equal in the eyes of the Buddhas and Arahantas. I have told you, Venerable Sariputta, chief disciple of the Buddha. So one day, an old man, a Brahmin, wanted to test him because everybody says he has too much patience and tolerance and kindness in him. So this old man wanted to test him. So what he did, he went behind him and gave him a blow. Sariputta did not want to come and see. So what happened? He went his own way, without grumbling or without accusing. Another person come and scolded him by using all the dirty words. No reaction. And this man could not understand why. He kept quiet. Then he asked, did you hear? What? You did not hear that I scolded you? No, I didn't hear anything. Because he was concentrating, meditating on something else. At that time, he cannot hear anything. Even then, his scolding cannot disturb his mind. He is an holy man, Arahantas. He said, no, I did not hear. Then he knew it is impossible to disturb. When you study the hundreds of cases, what happened to the Buddha? Same thing. Although we are not holy or saint or Buddhas, we too must try to cultivate certain good qualities as much as we can. Because these are the final answers to our problem. You can give 101 answers for your problem, but they are not the final one. But this is the final one. In the end, we had to adapt this attitude. And we never lose. In the end, we will win the battle. Then others also respect and bow down and surrender and come and apologize. This is a meritorious deed. Because you maintain purity in your mind in spite of so many disturbances. You don't allow your senses to bring certain unhealthy information and disturb the purity of the mind. When a person comes and scolds you, you use one organ here, this one, ear. And that sound vibration, the word you bring into your mind, disturb the purity of the mind, if they are vulgar and dirty words. A person who develops his mind, what he does, he guards his mind at that time without allowing such vibration to disturb the mind. This is the advice given by the Buddha to one of the disciples known as Bahir. He has come from long distance to meet the Buddha, having heard that he was a well-known religious teacher. He told him, I have been leading a religious life for a long time. At the moment, I have only one problem. He was not a Buddhist earlier. Then the Buddha asked, what is your problem? He said, when external disturbances enter into my mind, I cannot maintain peace. That's all. That is the only problem. Otherwise, I can observe all the precepts and good qualities and the virtues, but still I do not know how to guard my mind. Then the Buddha said, oh, that is not a big problem. You must know the technique. Then the Buddha said, Ditthe dittamattang, sute sutamattang, evaṁ te bāhya sikkhitabba. This is his own word. The advice given by the Buddha to Bahir. He said, when you happen to see something, an object, that object can be very tempting or very irritating object. Tempting one also disturb your mind, and irritating object also disturb your mind. So what you have to do, don't close your eyes. Look at properly. Analyze what it is. Consider very carefully what that object is. Try to understand the reality in it. After that, stop that object there. Don't bring that object into your mind. Right? Then, sound or voice. Somebody come and scold you. Another person come and praise you. Sound vibration. Both disturb the purity of your mind. When one person come and praise you, you become very proud. Also disturb purity in your mind. Accusing, blaming, also disturb your mind. And this sound vibration, don't bring into your mind. Guard your tongue. After that, no bad effect. A monk who wanted to practice his meditation in his monastery was disturbed by a young girl because her house was close to this monastery. So every night this girl goes on singing and reciting poems and poetry and songs and all sort of things. That is her habit, she enjoyed. And her sound vibration disturbed this monk's meditation. He cannot concentrate. Now you are thinking what to do now. But he has no right to go and ask that girl to stop, because she is doing in her house. Then, that monk was a wise man. Instead of hating this sound vibration, or instead of indulging or enjoying the musical sound, what he did? He concentrated only the sound vibration. He took this singing as an object for his meditation. Now he is neither hating nor enjoying. Mind is free and unbiased. He succeeded in his meditation. So it depends how we take things into our mind. Very good example, although Socrates was not a Buddhist. His attitude is a Buddhistic attitude. His wife was a very hot-tempered lady. Every day come and scold this old man. But he never shows his temper. He goes on scolding. In the end, Socrates says, "Oh, today, your way of talking, I have been watching very carefully, very advanced. No grammatical mistake in your talk, and your pronunciation is also excellent. And I was enjoying how you emphasize, certain words and certain areas when you talk. I really appreciate your talk." See, this is called meditation. No one can disturb. And Buddhism is, my dear friend, for this purpose. To cultivate your mind, to face such problem, irritable disturbances. Now we glorify our religion. We think that Buddhists are better than others. What have you got to prove that Buddhists are better than others? Have you got anything? You too have the same weaknesses, just like others. Makes no difference. Your anger, your jealousy, your greed, your selfishness, all these things are common. When you compare with others, then what sort of development, achievement you have created? Can you say we are good Buddhists because we come and worship, we do some chanting, every day we offer joss sticks or flowers, or we give dana. Yes, these are good deeds. Meritorious deed, no doubt. Don't stop. But others are also doing the same thing, according to their own way of life. Christian, Muslim, Hindus, and those who have no religions also do certain good deeds. Then what have you got to prove? How far you have developed your patience and kindness? How far you have developed your honesty? Can we say Buddhists are very honest people, never bluff others? Never. They are very honest people. Can you say? So these are the things that we have to cultivate. So we should not be so crazy for worldly merits. After spending, there's nothing to remain. Again we have to accumulate. So the question is, by doing some good deeds, rebirth may take place in a very favorable place or in a family as a human being or a deva, if not a Brahma. So, he wants to know whether that conducive environment or that life that he gained through the influence of his good merits can pave the way for him to attain final salvation or nirvana or enlightenment. That is the question. Answer to this question is yes and no. Both are there. Now this is very important. Now let us refer to the Buddha. In Samyutta Nikaya, these sayings of the Buddha. Kamma vipaka vattanti vipako kamma sambhavo tasma punabhavo hoti evaṁ loko pavartati. The Buddha says how this world means life, how this life exists. Kamma vipaka vattanti. We cannot live whether we are good or bad, whether we have religion or not, whether we believe or not. No one can live in this world or any part of the world without accumulating good karma and bad karma. Remember this. Every minute or every second we create either good karma or bad karma. Our way of thinking, way of talking, and way of doing things. All these three channels generate, accumulate good and bad karma. That is what we are doing. It's like when you run your engine, a motor car, you charge the battery. When you stop your engine, you use the energy that you have accumulated in the battery to start the engine. So the life and karma, these two things are working like this. While thinking, talking, doing things, we charge the battery in our karmic storehouse of consciousness. At the same time, for our day-to-day activities, even without our knowledge, we use our own accumulated karma good karma as well as bad karma. After our death, our existence or rebirth also take place through the influence of those accumulated karmas. When rebirth takes place, there again you charge the battery. Then run your engine. While running your engine, again you charge the battery. That is what we are doing here. This is called wheel of existence. Kamma vipaka vattanti. We are experiencing all our good and bad vipaka, effect or the result, due to our good and bad karmas. So I am responsible for my own good and bad experience, and you are responsible for yours. It is due to our ignorance we refer to somebody else, either God or devils or another person. It is our ignorance. Then, vipako kamma sambhava. Now this is very important. Assume that you were born in a very rich family where you can enjoy your worldly life. You gain everything what you need. No difficulty whatsoever. But you do not know, you gain all these things because of your good karma. Not knowing this, you misuse, abuse your way of life by using what you gained, what your karma has given to you. You can do lot of bad, cruel, dangerous, harmful things by using your power and authority and wealth. You abused your karmic result or the effect. Then you had it. That's why I told you. The answer to this question is yes and no. And this is no. Because you never realize that you got everything very easily because of your own karma. But you misuse. You have done more bad things by using what you gained. Many people are doing it. Then you miss the target. Another person who was born in a very rich family, very favorable, very peaceful life, gain everything. But he is wise. He thinks, I got all these things very easily. But many others are working like slaves day and night. They won't get even 3 meals a day. Why? But I did not work. I did not do anything to gain all these things. There must be some secrets. Why it is like this? Now then he realized, I might have done a lot of good deeds, good karmas during my previous birth. That is why I gain all these things. More than enough things I gain. Others, although they work, they won't get. Therefore I must be wise. So I must make use of these things that my good karma has given to me to accumulate more and more good karma. Then he practiced charity, he helped others, support others, give his helping hand, he does not develop jealousy or anger. Again he can develop. By considering, thinking in this way, he has developed his mental attitude also. So he can go on cultivating life after life. So the good karma has paved the way for him to get into the correct path. So the karma has supported him to lead a peaceful life. He can live, he can do things without grumbling, without worrying, without any suspicion in his life. Then peaceful life. Karma is favorable. So the karma must be used with understanding and intelligence. Then this kind of karma can pave the way for them to gain their final salvation. Otherwise, that karmic result can be abused and misused, invite more troubles and more headache. So now I have explained the nature of worldly karmas, the nature of supramundane or the spiritual development. To accumulate worldly karmas, we had to work hard. We had to spend a lot to give dana, practice charity, and we had to do a lot of work. You had to organize so many things. All these are worldly karmas. But to accumulate supramundane karma or the spiritual development, there is nothing for you to spend. If you know how to control yourself, to maintain patience and tolerance, nothing for you to spend. If you can reduce your selfishness, if you can do things without disregarding how others feel, consider that others also need your cooperation, not necessary to spend. What does it mean? Cooperation means you must know how to live without disturbing them. That is it. To live without disturbing them is very easy because there is nothing to spend. When I say try to live without disturbing, you cannot bluff, you cannot rob, you cannot accuse, you cannot curse, and all the other evil things. Automatically you have to stop. That is the way how to live without disturbing others. This is the way how to harmonize with others. Don't violate. That is called peaceful life, gentle life, noble life. That way of life accumulates a lot of merits. But we are crazy for worldly merit to go and enjoy. Craving create that idea. Otherwise we never become active. We are very active in the religious field to accumulate merits to enjoy our life. But we never think these so-called enjoyments turn into sufferings again. But never experience any disappointment in our life when we accumulate supramundane karma. But worldly karmas always create disappointment. When you become very kind, very honest, very patient and understanding person, you can avoid so many problems. Others also respect you, trust you. That is more than enough for you. Because they know you are a harmless person. You are an honest person. They don't know to disturb you. and your own mind. In your own mind you experience wonderful happiness and peace. No guilty conscience in your mind. Then you can satisfy with your life. There is nothing for you to worry about your life. Now you are worrying about your life. You are worrying about your next life, whether you go to heaven or hell. Always you think. But if you have cultivated some of these good qualities, there is nothing for you to worry about them. And not necessary to go and pray to any god, asking to take you to heaven. This is the advantage of the supramundane karma, the spiritual development. The more we culture, the more we train, the more we cultivate by reducing our weaknesses, illusions, hallucinations, defilements, impurities. You know how many things are there in our mind. Then the aim of our life, there is an aim. At the moment we create our aim, just like small children's way of life. All our imaginations about our life are very, very shallow. No solid or no firm footing or foundation. Depend on our craving and selfishness. By keeping all the evil forces, impurities in our mind, we are praying and worshipping to go to heaven and enjoy our life. And we accumulate karma also to enjoy life. Then another aspect. If yes, then assuming that more fortunate people are the wealthy people, it is generally observed that majority of them tend to associate less with the practice of the Dhamma. Why? Now here he concentrates only about wealth. Wealthy and rich. Do you know the difference between wealthy people and rich people? Is there any difference? Yes. Those who have property are wealthy people, but not rich. Even without any income, we can become very rich. If we have purity in our mind, if we know how to work according to our own conviction, with confidence, without depending on others, without depending on Buddha or God or anybody, they are very rich. Others, because they haven't got. They want something from God, something from Buddha, something from... let us refer to the Buddha, what he says in Dhammapada. Can you remember what he said? Santutti paramang dhana. Santutti, contentment. A poor man can become a contented man. A multi-millionaire cannot become a contented man. So when you study the mental attitude, analyze the mental attitude of that poor man and that rich man, who is more happy? that poor man, he is rich. Poor man is rich. The poor man has no guilty feeling in his mind. He has no jealousy, anger, hatred. He is not crooked. He is not cunning. He is happy. Always he experiences contentment. This is enough. Those who have read that book, Whither Mankind, that I have written some time ago. Today I got a letter from Sri Lanka, one retired director of education, asking permission to translate this book, Whither Mankind. The last poem, ancient Chinese wisdom in that book, the poem. Can you remember what is that poem? Chinese saying. What is that? Did you read that book? But you cannot remember, isn't it? It's a beautiful saying. I always mention this. I really appreciate that. A poor man in a countryside says, so I don't want to follow his wording, I use my own word. He says, I have my own well for me to take water at any time. I have my own paddy field for me to cultivate paddy, and I get enough rice for me to eat. I have my own hut, my shelter, to relax, to rest. Early morning when sun rises, I go out and do some work. Evening when the sun starts setting, I come home and relax. Then, why do I worry about kings or emperors or all those big shots? I have nothing to do with them. All these things are more than enough for me. That is called independent life. That is called contentment. He is not crazy for anything. His mind is free from all the rubbish that others maintain. That is what the Buddha says. Santutti paramangana. If you can satisfy by thinking, this is enough for me or for my family. Why should I be crazy to accumulate more and more and more? Allow others also to enjoy their life. Why should I accumulate so many things, more than enough things? How many people are suffering even without piece of cloth or even one meal a day? If you can think in that way, then contentment is there. And that contentment gives happiness. How? In that mind that we developed contentment, jealousy never appears. Jealousy always appears in our mind because of lack of contentment. If there is no jealousy, anger or enmity also never appear in that mind. If no anger or jealousy or enmity, discriminations or hostility never appear in our mind. See, all the dirty things, how we can remove from our mind by cultivating that contentment. So marriage cannot give all these things. It depends on how you cultivate your mind. So, wealth and property, no doubt, people gain very easily due to their good karma, but they can misuse and later they can become bankrupt. After that nobody knows their fate, what happened to them. There is no guarantee. And they have no time to concentrate, to learn the Dhamma or religion, because they are so selfish. They are crazy. And they don't like to go out. Insecurity feeling, fear, suspicion everywhere. So many enemies. So many people are jealous. See how he enjoys his wealth. How many people are waiting to kidnap? By maintaining fear, suspicion, tension, insecurity, because of that property, that man is in hell, actually speaking, not in heaven. Because of his craving, he clings to this, in spite of all these dangerous things, devils are around him. But when you develop contentment, no enemies and no jealousy, nobody wants to kidnap us, we are free. Then third part. If no, then how can a person progress in his search for final enlightenment? Even if his present life is virtuous, conditions in his next life might not be conducive for his progress. In this respect, the law of karma does not seem consistent and supportive. How can this be explained? Yes, definitely. That karma we have accumulated as worldly karmas cannot do anything for us if our understanding is poor, if our understanding is selfish, if we have developed more mental impurities because of our wealth and property and many other things. That karma cannot do anything. Now another important aspect, when we do some meritorious deeds, this is the advice given by the Buddha, we must have some sort of aim, that is called aspiration. Why do we want to do some meritorious deeds? For what purpose? What is our aim? Just now I told you, many people aim at worldly pleasure, enjoyable life. That's all. They know only this much. But they cannot understand the danger of that way of life, uncertainty of that way of life. Then what will happen to you? If you do all your meritorious deeds without aiming anything, what do you gain? You never think of heaven, never think, even to be born in a rich family, to enjoy your life. Just for the name's sake, you do a lot of good deeds, meritorious deeds. Do you think that you gain anything? What is your answer? Yes or no? Do you gain anything or not? Yes or no? Yes, what do you gain? Pardon? Here the Buddha answered this question. Dhanam khalu sabhavena sagga manusa bhogada. Whenever we do some good deeds or meritorious deeds or charity or whatever it may be, naturally, here the Buddha is saying, naturally we gain worldly material things. Because that is the nature of this karma. Whether you believe it or not, whether you aim at this or not, naturally you gain it. But you do not know what you gain. This is the problem. Because you have never developed any aim. Be wise. Do good things with understanding, not blindly. Although you have done a lot of good deeds, you do not know what you gain. Why not you direct this end to gain something which is meaningful? Then you have to consider. Again refer to the Buddha. He says, people develop these three objects, aims, aspire to gain. Majority develop these hopes and confidence or aspiration to be rich, to enjoy worldly life, to lead a healthy and wealthy and peaceful and long life. That's all. Definitely you gain. There is no doubt. You gain all these things that you aspired. But you have polluted the purity of your meritorious deeds. See the difference now. By narrowing your merits, you confine this only for your worldly pleasure. So inside in your aspiration, there is selfishness. For your own benefit, for your own pleasure, for your own happiness. Selfishness. Then the Buddha says, don't stop thinking only that much. You are not wise. You have to develop further. Then the second step. By doing or while doing some good deeds or meritorious deeds, you aim or you aspire to gain more wealth, more knowledge, more power, more strength, more energy. See how many things are there now. So that you can contribute your wealth, your property, your knowledge, your education, your wisdom, your understanding for the benefit of others, to relieve others' suffering, grievances, problems and difficulties. That aspiration is higher than the first one. Narrow-mindedness or selfishness you reduce. Your aim is not only for your own benefit, but to do some service to others by using the merits. Again the Buddha says, that is not the highest. You have to extend further. Although you gain worldly material things and wealth and power and authority and knowledge and wisdom and everything, although you can do some service to others, still you remain in this world, within this cycle of birth and death. Remember this. Be wise. So by the virtues of this merit, while serving others, may I get the chance or opportunity to find out the final salvation, which is called nirvanic bliss, where we do not experience birth and old age and sickness and death and repeated birth and death, free from all these things. So you can divert your mind through your meritorious deeds if you can develop your mind in this way. Now you see the difference now. So you cannot gain your final salvation without extending your kindness, compassion, charity, understanding, honesty and patience to others. Remember, 3 stages. It is due to our craving we develop only that much to go to heaven and enjoy life. Selfishness and craving. To be born in rich family to enjoy life. Selfishness and craving. You gain it. Again you get into trouble. But you can pave the way. You can make use of your karma while experiencing peace and happiness, while doing some service to others, and also the final goal, the aim or the purpose of your life. So the meritorious deeds also we had to do wisely, not foolishly. I think enough.